The board will now come to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Schweitzer, Alderman Oldenburg, Alderman Cone, Alderman Narayan, Alderman Balmer, Alderwoman Velazquez, Alderwoman Sanye, Alderwoman Spencer, Alderman Browning, Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, Alderwoman Keys, Alderwoman Tyus, Alderwoman Boyd, Alderman Aldridge, President Green,
Present.
Alderman Oldenburg, Alderwoman Velazquez, Alderwoman Spencer, Alderwoman Tyus,
Present.
Alderwoman Boyd. 12 present, you have quorum.
A quorum being present, we will be led in opening reflection by the Treasurer of the United Nations Association of St. Louis as we recognize the 79th anniversary of the United Nations Charter. Please welcome Rule Harry Van.
Thank you very much. In addition to the Treasurer of the United Nations Association of St. Louis, I am also the Consul for the country of the Netherlands in Missouri, Kansas, and Nebraska. I reside in St. Louis County. I was born in the Netherlands, that's the accent you'll hear. And I moved about 30 years ago to the St. Louis region. Since then, I've become a U.S. citizen, and I have also personal experience as a UN peacekeeper in Lebanon in 1982. So this year marks the 79th anniversary of the UN Charter. Actually, yesterday was the actual day. And we appreciate the Board of Aldermen recognizing the important occasion. As the United Nations Association of St. Louis, we look forward to building a stronger relationship and partnership with the city of St. Louis. We invite and encourage the city of St. Louis to also look forward or towards the 17 Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations, which were adopted in 2015 by world leaders with a target of 2030. As a guidance and an inspiration to advancing peace, prosperity, and eradicating extreme poverty for the people of the planet. The United Nations Association provides insight and education to the public about the role of the UN and how it benefits the United States. We conduct several public events throughout the year and collaborate with the Missouri Historical Society and Civitas to conduct a 2-week Changemaker program for high schoolers every summer. To enable us to be as effective as possible in addressing the St. Louis region, we surveyed our members and then later on the public on which of these 17 Sustainable Development Goals are most relevant for our region. And we ended up with the top 5. No poverty, no hunger, good health and well-being, quality education, and peace, justice, and strong institutions. There is continued need for strong United States support for the United Nations, and we hope this marks the time to reflect that with conflict and disaster taking place around the globe, together we take this opportunity to uplift our United Nations advocacy and support and engage in a more peaceful and prosperous region, nation, and global community. Thank you very much.
Introduction of honored, or sorry, we will dispense. Hold on, have an update here. We'll dispense with our regular order of the day to take up the special order of the day, resolution number 164. If Alderwoman Schweitzer would like to approach the dais. Kurt Scobie.
Thank you, President Green. Good morning, everyone. Madam Clerk, can you please read the resolution?
Resolution 164 honoring Kurt Scobie. Whereas Kurt Scobie has spent his entire career ensuring the communities have access to clean and reliable water. He will be retiring on October 31st, 2024 as the Director of Public Utilities after serving the City Water Division for 39 years. And whereas Mr. Scobie graduated with a Bachelor's of Science in Civil Engineering from the University of Missouri-Rolla and a Master's of Science in Civil Engineering from the University of Missouri-Columbia. Whereas Mr. Scobie comes from a family of engineers, including his father, siblings, and now one of his children. His wife, Mary, was also an engineer for the Highway Department before becoming a stay-at-home mom to their twin children who are graduating from college this year. Whereas Mr. Scobie has helped the city through many challenges, like dealing with COVID-19 pandemic and managing the Howard Bent plant during the Great Flood of '93. A new flood wall around Howard Bent was completed just 3 months before the flood, when the Mississippi River reached its highest recorded level at 49.58 feet. And whereas Mr. Scobie's dedication to water safety goes beyond his job, he is active in the American Water Works Association, where he has held many positions such as chair, director, and the trustee of the Missouri section. He also serves on the Missouri Drinking Water Commission, volunteers for the Partnership for Safety Drinking Water, and was the president of the Metro Water Infrastructure Partnership. Whereas Mr. Scobie has been recognized by the American Water Works Association for his distinguished service to the water supply field. He received the George Warren Fuller Award, which is given to people who demonstrate strong engineering skills, leadership, and diplomacy. And whereas in 2007, the U.S. Conference of Mayors voted St. Louis City Water the best tasting tap water in the nation. Compliments to our water quality are compliments to those who manage our water. Whereas Mr. Scobie is a leader beloved by his colleagues, known for being fair, supportive, and committed to due diligence. Whereas after a lifetime of dedicated service, Mr. Scobie deserves a wonderful retirement that includes hunting season this November, spending time with family, traveling, and relaxing at the family farm and working on house projects. Now, therefore, be it resolved by this Honorable Board of Aldermen of the City of St. Louis that we pause in our deliberation to honor Kurt Scobie's lifelong service to the City Water Division and congratulate him on his retirement. We further direct the Clerk of the Board to spread the copy of this resolution across the minute of the proceedings and prepare a commemorative copy to the end that it may be presented at a time and place deemed appropriate by the sponsor. Introduced this 25th day of October by the Honorable Ann Schweitzer and the following co-sponsors: Honorable Megan Green, President of the Board; Daniela Velasquez, Michael Browning, Rasheen Aldridge, Shameen Clark-Hubbard, Laura Keys, Joseph Valmer, Thomas Oldenburg, Brett Narayan, Alicia Sanye, and Alderwoman Sharon Tyus. Adopted this 25th day of October 2024.
That might be the longest this board has ever clapped for anyone, just so you know. Director Scobie, I couldn't say it any better than the resolution. Your lifetime of service here to the city of St. Louis is remarkable and very appreciated. This is a Board of Aldermen that cares deeply about the water in our city, and I know that has been your work, and that is why we've received so many accolades in the city of St. Louis for the quality of our water, and why we are all just so appreciative of your work and everything that you've done. I'm sure my colleagues have plenty to say about you and will say many, many nice things, but I can say from me and the time that I've been an alderperson, you've always been so responsive, clearly have cared deeply about the work that you do, and are always there to make sure that emergencies are handled as soon as they happen. And I think that has been just so wonderful, and you always do it with such a sense of calm and just a competence. So I very much appreciate that, and I'm sure my colleagues have things to say, but I'll pass it back to the president.
Would you like to say anything?
Well, true to form, I don't have much to say, but I do appreciate the recognition, and it's an honor. It's an honor to serve the city of St. Louis and its citizens. The water department has been a passion that I enjoyed. It matters, and thank you.
Most every member of the board is standing at a mic right now, so I will work my way across the room. But Alderman from the 4th.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I just want to congratulate you on your retirement moving forward. Clean drinking water is one of the most important things that you can have in a region. We've seen in places where they don't have clean drinking water a lot of the problems that arise. You've been incredible over your career at dealing with that, as well as the aging infrastructure that we have in our water infrastructure here in the city. As Alderwoman Schweitzer pointed out, you've been incredibly responsive when there are issues in terms of making sure that those issues get addressed. Thank you for your years of service, and I hope you enjoy the time off and not thinking about water so much, maybe. And with that, I think most members of the board are on this, but I move that we make this impact.
Second.
Moved by the Alderman from the 4th, seconded by the Alderman from the 3rd, that we make Resolution 64 in bank. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Resolution 164 is now in bank. Alderwoman from the 10th.
Don't tap it. We know mine's on.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I don't want to be repetitive because I absolutely echo Alderwoman Schweitzer's sentiments about your responsiveness. I learned so much from you just in the 5 years I've been here in the water. So I'll tell a little different story before I thank you for your service. During the pandemic, I was part of this show online called the Own Your Now Show. And one of the things you had to do was mention what you had in your cup. And I was known for saying, I got STL water in my cup because we were voted the best water and because it is really good. So I want to thank you again. You know that your work and your legacy has spread in so many different ways and will now go on. And you have champions down here. Now, in Alderwoman Schweitzer, we stand with her in the work and living on in the work that you have done. I wish you Godspeed in your next chapters and your journeys and relaxing in peace. And congratulations. Thank you again for your service.
Alderman from the 3rd.
Thank you, Madam President. And thank you, Kurt, for your years of service with the city of St. Louis. There are very few departments in city government that are as popular as our water division. Even when maintenance occurs on our lines, people are just so appreciative of the work that your team does to expedite and get service back and connected. And you do it so well and so efficiently, especially given the challenges with our infrastructure and aging infrastructure. And, I've been down here for 16 years, and I remember fondly the tours, several tours I've been on of the water division plant, learning about our processes, the history, just the wealth of knowledge that you have brought to your role and to your team, which I'm absolutely certain will be missed by so many over in the water department as well. We talk about, staffing, personnel, and all of that down here pretty regularly. And one of the challenges that we face as a city is having that institutional knowledge transfer to the next generation of leadership in our communities and in our departments. And so you are going to be so sorely missed, but I am so excited for you on your next chapter and your next journey and the next adventures that you're going to have. But I can't tell you how appreciative I am and the citizens of this city are for your knowledge, your management, your expertise, and your calm. I'm trying to remember what the alderwoman from this calm competence. I think we need to, catchphrase that here. Your calm competence was just an astounding trait and a wonderful leadership trait that will be sorely missed here in city government. And so congratulations and thank you very much for your many years of service to our city.
Alderwoman from the 11th.
Thank you, Madam President of the board. Water is life. And thank you, Kurt, so much for all of your hard work. I am addicted to St. Louis water. I've traveled to different places, including out of the country, in places like Dubai and Abu Dhabi. And you got to have a bottle of water with you because you cannot drink the water that comes out of the tap. And it is so wonderful. I brag on our water all the time. And to know that you were at the helm making sure that our water was clean and safe for everyone is just amazing. God bless you. To Ann Schweitzer, you've been a champion of this water thing for quite a while, and I salute you for all of your work to inform and to educate our city about water and how it comes into our homes and into our communities. And so thank you. God bless you both.
Alderman from the 5th.
Hello, thank you. Good morning. Kurt, thank you very much. As an alderman, you've made my life much easier by your competence. As a tavern owner, you've made my life much better by your product. And upon your retirement, I believe if anyone at any brewery in the city of St. Louis is watching, this man should drink free beer for the rest of his life, wherever, from every brewery, because without him, you'd have the worst beer instead of the best beer. And thank you.
Alderman from the 9th.
Thank you. Not to belabor the point, but what my colleagues have said about leadership is absolutely true. Making sure that we have safe, clean drinking water for our city, the very basis of life here, the very basis of equity in our city, right? If we can't go and turn on the tap and make sure that what's coming out of it is safe for us, we see what happens to cities that struggle with that. But we also know that having a healthy, access to water is just crucial. So that confidence, that leadership has led us to be able to have one of the best products in the country, maybe, as the other one from the 11 said, around the world. And I have only had the chance to work with you for only a couple years, but in that time I've found you to be every bit of a leader, as everyone has said. So there's always water in this cup. There will never be anything else, and it's always St. Louis water. And that's because of the leadership that you've given us. I also want to say thank you to Alderwoman Schweitzer and you, Director Scobie, because I think making sure that the water division was in a place where it can succeed into the future was especially important. And so the water rate debates that we had around this chamber last year was part of that, making sure that as you retire, which is well earned, by the way, as you retire, that you have set this division up for success long into the future, and you can feel confident about that. So thank you.
Alderwoman from the 6th.
Thank you. I know you've got a flood of compliments over here, and I'm going to keep it short. And yes, that was a, but I just want to say thank you for your service to the city, for maintaining what is obviously one of the most important utilities that we have. And also, you have one of the hardest jobs. I mean, doing this and this particular utility, managing it in a situation that requires a vote of a political body is not an easy feat. So thank you for all that you've done. And I agree with Alderman Vollmer. You should get free beer for the rest of your life here in the city. So thank you.
Alderwoman from the 12th.
Thank you, thank you. Mr. Scobie, I want to thank you for your years of service. I actually served with your predecessor, so I guess I also will serve with the person who follows you. I understand the importance of water. I am like the alderman from the 9th. In my cup always is St. Louis City water. I'm also a person who brags about it. I've received the reports for a very long time, over 20 years, about the greatness of our water. But I also want to thank you, Mr. Scobie, for always returning calls. You're brief in your conversation, but you give back. If there's a problem, you try to solve it. I appreciate it. So I am not known to be brief, but in salute to you, I'm going to be very brief and say thank you, Mr. Scobie. I appreciate you.
Alderwoman from the 7th.
I don't want to be redundant, so just thank you for all of your service. Much newer, so I didn't get to work with you as long as some of my other colleagues, but we did get to work together a little bit when you came and presented to the Committee of the Whole, and you knew the data like the back of your hand, came with all of the questions. I think your presentation really gave a good depiction of where our city's water is. You always do a great job. I know I've called you and be like, can you explain to me where the funding comes from? What's state, what's federal? And you've just always been very educational, very patient, very willing to come in front of the public, which I appreciate. And just wanted to thank you for your service and always being accessible and willing to talk to the city's people. Thank you.
Alderwoman from the 8th.
Thank you, Madam President. Members, I want to echo my colleagues down here and just thank you, Commissioner Scobie, for your decades of service. I think it's clear that we have fantastic water, but we actually have, I think, the best water in the United States. We have been given so many accolades and so many awards. It's just an incredible asset that we have here at a time in our lifetimes when water as a commodity is only increasing in its importance. The fact that our city owns its own water department as a utility is just an incredible asset that we have, and thanks to your efforts, we've even fought off the privatization of that utility, as many of us can remember. So thank you for keeping it safe, thank you for keeping it wonderful, thank you for keeping it top of class, and making sure that we continue to have control of that utility.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Well, seeing none, I too just want to thank you so much for your service. Every time I've ever contacted you about something, you've been on it. I remember, I think I was driving in the 4th Ward, and it was like a Sunday afternoon, and I came across a place where it looked like there had been a water main break. And I remember sending you a message, and by the time I went to where I was going and came back, an hour and a half later, crews were already there, on scene working to fix it. And that just, I think, is a testament to how on top of everything you always are, how responsive you are, no matter if it's on a weekend or an evening or whatever, because we know that water infrastructure can break down at any time of the day, and having you always on call and always responsive has been really great. So you deserve this retirement. Actually, take some time to retire. Maybe go and chill by some water somewhere. And but at this time, if members of the board would like to have a picture, we could all. Oh, sorry, Alderman from the 14th.
Thank you. Sorry for the confusion, Madam President and Madam Clerks. I just also, Director, want to just give my appreciation to you. I know we've dealt with some large sinkholes in the 14th Ward that lasted for a very long time, but I think, like the Alderwoman from the 10th said, you're very communicative, or being able to, it's easy to communicate with you and get a response from you. And I just want to say thank you for your years of service. Thank you for making sure St. Louis has the best water. I'm one of those individuals that drink out of faucet. I do not need a bottle of water. I get my ice and I get the water out the faucet because I know we have great water. And you have been amazing in the time that I've been here. I know on public infrastructures, you've probably been the director that's come down the most. That's also because the Alderwoman loves talking about water herself, as she's passed the board bill for water and making sure it's right. So you've continued to work with this board in collaboration, and I think that's what we all love to see in city government. So just thank you for your years of service. And as Madam President said, go chill by some water. Hopefully some St. Louis water and not some other place. Thank you.
And with that, if we would all like to gather on the steps for a picture.
The gavel. Right.
Thanks, Shane. Okay. Any introduction of honored guests? Any introduction of honored guests? Alderwoman from the 11th.
Madam President, members of the board. My honored guest today, I see Nancy Cross is here. Welcome, welcome. So I'm going to claim her first as my honored guest for today. Additionally, the Urban League, Mike McMillan and his team have received the award again, 20 years, 5-star rating for the work that they do and continue to do, have done and continue to do in our community. And we thank them for that. Additionally, last night, I was at the first ever gala for Northside Community Housing Incorporated. And my honored guests from there are the honorees, Don Buckmiller, Brian Hurd, and John F. Kennedy Sr. He's not necessarily the Kennedy family that we are familiar with, but a great man nonetheless, and has done great work for Northside Housing. I do see my good friend up in the rafters there, Dave, so I'll claim him as well. And so with that, that is the end of my honored guests for today. Thank you.
Any further introduction of honored guests? Any further introduction of honored guests? Alderwoman from the 10th.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I would like to have as my honored guest my constituents. You know I love to. I am so proud to be Dr. Flint Fowler and Marie Fowler's all the ladies too, and he celebrated his retirement last night at the Great Futures Gala for Boys and Girls Clubs of St. Louis. 29 years of incomparable service and the lives, again, that was mentioned last night by Mayor Jones, that he has saved generations of lives through the youth here in the city of St. Louis. So Dr. Fowler, please take your seat. Again, we know your work is not done. We owe you a debt of gratitude, but we want to make sure that you enjoy your next chapters. Godspeed. I know for you and Marie, the best is yet to come.
Any further introduction of honored guests? Seeing none, Alderwoman from the 10th, you're recognized on the approval of the minutes from Friday, October 18th.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I move that we approve the minutes from Friday, October 18th, 2024.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 10th, seconded by the Alderman from the 4th, that we approve minutes from Friday, October 18th, 2024. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Report of city officials.
Report of city officials can be found in A, B, and C of the agenda and has been placed in the Google Drive for your review.
Does anyone wish to take any bills or resolutions off of any of our informal calendars? 9th.
Thank you. I think I need to do this one at a time. So first, I will ask that we take Board Bill 89 off of the informal calendar and put it on the consent calendar for Board Bills for Perfection.
Madam Clerk, please make note of that.
So noted.
And then I would also like to request that we move Board Bill 90 off of the informal calendar and onto the Perfection consent calendar.
Madam Clerk, please make note of that.
So noted.
Does anyone wish to take any further bills or resolutions off of any of our informal calendars?
I'd like to move Board Bill 60. Can I make a?
You need to wait until we get to that part of the agenda.
Got it.
All right, with that, first reading of board bills.
Board Bill 118, the number not used this session. Board Bill 119, sponsored by Alderwoman Boyd, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, appropriating the Department of Health funds received by the City of St. Louis pursuant to the distributed settlement agreements, authorizing the expenditure of such funds to the extent received, authorizing contracts and other documents to expend such funds to the extent received, containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 120, sponsored by Alderwoman Boyd, an ordinance authorizing the Comptroller of the City of St. Louis to execute a contract for sales with certain terms, including the receipt of and in consideration of the sum of $25,000 with contingencies for financing, among others, for Young Voices with Action, a Missouri nonprofit corporation, to purchase a certain owned property located in City Block 5000, which as 5937 through 47 Dr. Martin Luther King Drive in the City of St. Louis, 63112, containing the severability clause. Board Bill 121, sponsored by Alderman Browning, an ordinance pertaining to parking within the Forest Park Southeast Parking District, which establishes the location and restriction for curb parking in the restricted parking zone in the district created by this ordinance, authorizing the placement of permit parking only signs within the district, prohibiting the parking within the district of any vehicle which does not obtain the authorized permit, containing definitions and a penalty clause. Board Bill 122, sponsored by Alderman Ryan, an ordinance amending Chapter 3.02 of the Revised Code of the City of St. Louis to require all city boards and commissions to develop and adopt rules, and requiring those rules to be available to the public on the city website, and providing for Robert's Rules of Order to prevail whenever the rules of the city boards and commissioners are silent, providing for training to be offered to members of the boards and commissions to ensure familiarity with their rules, Sunshine Law, and Robert's Rules. Board Bill 123, sponsored by Alderman Aldridge, an ordinance establishing a four-way stop sign at the intersection of Locust and 22nd Street, regulating all traffic, containing an emergency clause. That's the extent of first reading of board bills.
Reference to committee of board bills.
To the HUD and Human Development Committee, Board Bill 119. To HUD's, Board Bill 120. To Public Infrastructure and Utilities Committee, Board Bill 121 and 123. And to Legislation Committee, Board Bill 122. That's the extent of reference to committee of board bills.
Second reading and report of standing committees.
The following board bills were reported out of HUD's committee with a due pass recommendation. Board Bill 86, sponsored by Alderman Aldridge and Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, an ordinance approving a redevelopment plan dated January the 23rd, 2024 for the 1105 Olive Street area in the City of St. Louis. Board Bill 115, sponsored by Alderwoman Clark Hubbard and Alderwoman Sanye, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, authorizing the mayor to submit the City of St. Louis 2025 through 2029 Consolidated Plan and 2025 Annual Action Plan to the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, containing a severability clause and an emergency clause. The following board bills were reported out of Public Infrastructure and Utilities Committee with the due pass recommendation. Board Bill 116, as amended, sponsored by Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, an ordinance directing the Director of Streets to install speed humps pursuant to ordinance number 70333, as amended by ordinance number 71394, to calm the flow of traffic on the 5,900 blocks and 6,000 blocks of Horton Place. Board Bill 117, sponsored by Alderwoman Schweitzer, pursuant to ordinance number 70333, as amended by ordinance number 71394, an ordinance directing the Director of Streets to install speed humps to calm the flow of traffic on various blocks in the First Ward. That's the extent of second reading. Report of standing committees.
Report of special committees.
We have none.
We can dispense with line item 15. Board bills for perfection consent.
Board Bill 83, sponsored by Alderman Oldenburg, an ordinance establishing a three-way stop site at the intersection of Macklin Avenue and Mylands Avenue, regulating all traffic traveling northbound and southbound on Macklin Avenue and eastbound on Mylands at the intersection of Macklin Avenue and Mylands Avenue, containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 91, sponsored by Alderman Aldridge, Alderwoman Schweitzer, Alderman Vollmer, Alderwoman Velazquez, Alderman Browning, Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, and Alderwoman Key. Pursuant to ordinance number 68937, the proposed bill authorizes honorary street name Freedom Way, which shall begin at the intersection of Market Street and 11th Street to the intersection of Chestnut and 11th Street. Board Bill 95, sponsored by Alderman Aldridge, President Green, Alderman Vollmer, Alderman Cone, Alderman Narayan, Alderwoman Velazquez, and Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. An ordinance to amend section 3.72.03 of the revised code of the City of St. Louis to add circuit attorney to the list of office that have campaign contribution limits. Board Bill 109, sponsored by Alderman Aldridge, Alderwoman Schweitzer, Alderman Vollmer, Alderwoman Velazquez, Alderman Browning, Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, Alderwoman Keys, and Alderwoman Tyus. An ordinance authorizing the honorary street name Tuskegee Airman Way, pursuant to ordinance number 68937, which shall begin at the intersection of Chestnut Street and North 19th Street and run west on Chestnut Street to the intersection of Chestnut and North 14th Street. Board Bill 89, sponsored by Alderman Browning, Alderman Narayan, Alderman Oldenburg, Alderwoman Velazquez, Alderwoman Keys, Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, Alderwoman Sanye, and Alderman Aldridge. An ordinance recommended by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment authorizing the St. Louis Treasurer's Office to accept the Cities of Financial Empowerment Fund Program grant up to an initial amount of $75,000 plus a subsequent anticipated award up to $75,000 for project implementation by entering into a memorandum of understanding with the City of Financial Empowerment Fund, authorizing the expenditure of such fund to the extent received, authorizing contracts and other documents to extend such funds to the extent received, containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 90, sponsored by Alderman Browning, Alderman Narayan, Alderman Oldenburg, Alderwoman Velazquez, Alderwoman Keys, Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, Alderwoman Sanye, and Alderman Aldridge. An ordinance recommended by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment authorizing the City Emergency Management Agency to accept a cybersecurity and infrastructure security agency state and local cybersecurity grant in the amount of $198,317.91 from the State of Missouri Emergency Management Agency, appropriating said funds and a required city match for such funds, authorizing the expenditures of such funds to the extent received, authorizing contracts and other documents to expend such funds to the extent received, containing an emergency clause. That's the extent of board bills for a perfection consent calendar.
Alderwoman from the 10th.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I had a quick note that I wanted to make for the record that Board Bill 116 passed out of committee as amended with the addition of the 5100 block of Cates Avenue.
Okay. You could please make note of that, Madam Clerk.
So noted.
Alderwoman from the 10th, you're recognized on the motion to adopt the Alderman from the 14th.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to be added as a co-sponsor to Board Bill, is it 116? 116.
Madam Clerk, please make note of that. Alderwoman from the 10th, you're recognized on the motion to adopt the board bills for the perfection consent calendar.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I move that we adopt the board bills for perfection consent calendar.
Second.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 10th, seconded by the Alderman from the 14th, that we adopt the board bills for the perfection consent calendar. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Board bills for perfection. Alderwoman from the 6th.
Thank you, Madam.
Thank you, Madam. Ooh, very loud. Thank you, Madam President. I would like to move Board Bill 63 from the perfection calendar to the informal calendar.
Madam Clerk, please make note of that.
Thank you.
Board bills for perfection.
Board Bill 92 as amended, sponsored by Alderman Aldridge, Alderwoman Schweitzer, Alderman Balmer, Alderwoman Velazquez, Alderman Brownie, Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, Alderwoman Keys, and Alderwoman Tyus. An ordinance authorizing the renaming of the Civil Courts Building at 10 North Tucker in honor of the Honorable Clyde C. Cahill, Jr., pursuant to ordinance number 68937.
Alderman from the 14th, you're recognized on the perfection of Board Bill 92 as amended.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I move to perfect Board Bill 92 as amended.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 14th, seconded by the Alderman from the 5th, that we perfect Board Bill number 92 as amended. Alderman, you may proceed.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I would like to adopt Amendment 1 to Board Bill 92 as amended.
Second.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 14th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 10th, that we adopt Amendment number 1 to Board Bill number 92 as amended. Alderman, you may proceed on the amendment.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. Amendment number 1, which is in everybody drive and their desks, on page 1, line 2, strikes out pursuant to ordinance number 68937, which is an honorary street ordinance. And after talking to legal counsel and our clerk, we're going to strike that out just so there's no confusion that this would be reference to the street, but actually the building.
Any further discussion on the amendment? Any further discussion? Seeing none, it's been moved by the Alderman from the 14th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 10th, that we adopt Amendment number 1 to Board Bill number 92 as amended. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Alderman, you may proceed on Board Bill number 92 as amended.
Thank you, Madam President and members of the committee. I really don't know where to start with this. It's truly an honor to be able to do this piece of legislation. A few months ago, Judge Mason, legendary judge within the city of St. Louis, reached out to me to work on a project with him. And as a young person, I kind of felt special that he allowed me to be part of such an amazing opportunity. There were several pieces of legislation that we passed on the consent calendar, such as Freedom Way. But what this board bill would do, it would name the civil court after an honorary judge that has made so much history here in the city of St. Louis. Folks could just take a moment to indulge me a little bit. I would love to talk about why it's important to be able to name the civil courts after Clyde Cahill. So Judge Clyde Cahill fought to desegregate schools, expose discrimination sentencing, and represent people protecting against racism in his decades-long career. Judge Cahill was born here in the city of St. Louis in 1923. He graduated from Vashon, so you Vashonites. He was a former Vashonite, and he applied to the Howard University and applied, but could not afford the $600 requirement to get there. Cahill later joined the Army. He flew planes and then returned home in St. Louis in the 1940s. He later graduated from the St. Louis University School in 1951. He worked for a short time in a private practice before joining the Circuit Attorney's Office under Thomas F. Eagleton, which we know is now named at the Federal Court Building. Cahill left the prosecutor office in the 1960s and went back to private practice, where he fought school segregation in St. Louis and across the state, worked as a legal advisor to the NAACP, and was part of a team that sued a major railroad company over discrimination, employee practices, and later on eventually won the lawsuit. He became a city circuit judge in 1975 and went off of his way to help jurors understand their roles as what it was to be a juror as they decided cases. The appeals court constantly struck down several of Cahill's pieces of legislation. In his ruling. In 1980, President Jimmy Carter nominated Judge Cahill to be the U.S. District Judge. He was confirmed later that year. In that role, Cahill presided over a long-running lawsuits about conditions at the city jail, which eventually led to a new building and a new facility. In 1994, Judge Cahill tossed charges against a man accused of crack cocaine possession. And if you can go back to the committee hearing, it was really interesting to have Judge Mason talk about why this was important for Judge Cahill to kind of push back against crack cocaine. At the time, a similar powder substance that was also being used in a white community was being disproportionately ruled against when it came to crack cocaine with black people. So Judge Cahill filed a lawsuit to the federal level, which eventually was struck down, but he continued to fight to overturn injustices and discrimination when it comes to black people and racism in the city of St. Louis. Cahill eventually died in 2004, and it was really amazing to have his son, Randall Cahill, at the hearing to be able to talk about the legacy of his father, and also to have Judge Mason, who worked with other judges in the Supreme Court and the Civil Courts building, to get them all on board to be able to do, I think, a small token of a man who is a great giant here in the city of St. Louis, by getting them to come together and agree that they were okay with renaming the Civil Court to Judge Cahill Court. And with that, Madam President, I would close and open up for any questions.
Any further discussion? Alderwoman from the 7th.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I'll thank Alderman Aldridge for his amazing remarks. Judge Cahill is a civil rights legend, is a social justice warrior. He's someone that I look to a lot. Just someone in their community, a black man who got to a position of power and figured out how to help others who are often left behind, and how to have a conversation and make his colleagues and his peer and really society and the legal and judicial system be honest about, the way that we have treated African Americans and the way that rules are not fair, and been a real advocate for people who are at the bottom of the legal system while being in a position of power. So I definitely wanted to take a moment to take my hat off and to commend him and let him know that, there are many people, especially those of us who are coming up, who look to him. And I read his quotes, I read his articles, just a big follower of him and his strong, strong advocacy, and would actually like to make a motion to embank this.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 7th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 6th, that we embank Board Bill number 92 as amended. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Not. Alderman from the 14th, you are recognized to close.
I think there's one more, Madam President. I'm sorry.
Oh, Alderwoman from the 10th.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I didn't want to miss my opportunity to thank Alderman Aldridge for picking up this baton. I know that group that's been working to do this is very engaged, have been meeting regularly, and really had this effort going just in time for us to be here, the blessing to be in position to be able to carry it out. So again, I thank you for that. If you didn't participate or watch that meeting, thanks to STL TV, you can go back and watch that meeting. That committee meeting had chills running through my arms when I was watching it. There was so much history, so much pride, and if you're looking for hope, I think that I recommend that you watch that committee. Now, you can watch those committee hearings anytime because Alderwoman Schweitzer runs a very good hearing. But on top of that, that public utilities and infrastructure meeting that day, I think is one definitely for the books. So I encourage you listening. I encourage constituents. I encourage us to share with our networks. And again, thank you for bringing this forward and being able to carry it to fruition for them.
Any further discussion? Alderwoman from the 6th.
Thank you. I don't want to be too redundant here. I do want to thank Alderman Aldrich for bringing this bill forward. I didn't know much about Judge Cahill before that hearing, and I want to echo what Alder Lady Clark Hubbard said. Watch it. I do think he paved a pretty giant path, and I think just as Alderman Aldrich pointed out, he made some bold moves in pointing out the war on drugs was really a war on communities in a way that was really bold and was trailblazing in pointing out the disparities in the sentencing and what it was doing to and pretty profoundly. So thank you for bringing this, and I think we should all take a page from his lessons and read more about it. So thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, Alderman from the 14th, you are recognized to close.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the committee or to the board. First, I want to thank all my colleagues for signing on to, I think, this very historic piece of legislation. And I really want to thank again to Judge Mason and the whole committee that was working on this for a very long time, and to Judge Cahill's son for allowing me to be a vessel to be able to work with them to actually get this done. It, as Judge Mason said, it's kind of a passing of the torch to have the ability to work with your elders and also learn from them, and to be able to work with them to get something done like this. So again, I want to thank that committee. I want to thank the Cahill family and all my colleagues for supporting this piece of legislation. And with that, I would ask that we perfect Board Bill 92 as amended.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 14th, seconded by the Alderman from the 4th, that we perfect Board Bill number 92 as amended. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Board Bill 108, sponsored by Alderman Browning, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, authorizing the City of St. Louis, Missouri to issue its taxable industrial development revenue bond in the principal amount of not to exceed $42 million for the purpose of providing funds to pay the cost of construction an industrial development project in the city, approving a plan for such project, authorizing and directing the mayor and the comptroller to execute certain documents related thereto, authorizing the director of taking of other actions and approval and the execution of other documents as are necessary or desirable to carry out and comply with the intent hereof.
Alderman from the 9th, you are recognized on the perfection of Board Bill 108.
Thank you. I move that we perfect Board Bill 108.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 9th, seconded by the Alderman from the 14th, that we perfect Board Bill number 108. Alderman, you may proceed.
Thank you. This is a sales tax exemption for a construction project that will build 173 apartments at the corners of Sarah and Clayton Avenue. This is a project that's been a long time coming. This was back before the board a couple years ago in 2022, received approval back then, and now that they're ready to break ground on this, they're asking for sales tax exemption on construction materials. This is important to note that most sales tax that is paid doesn't actually come from the city. It's actually most of the construction materials get purchased outside the city, as much as 95%. So this really isn't going to be a huge cost to the city, but what it does bring the city is 173 new apartments, 17 of which are going to be at 60% AMI for the next 10 years. So this is a really great project. In addition to all the other things that it brings, we are finally bringing housing to the Cortex district, which is essential for that district to continue to build and thrive and build on its mission of continuing to build the income of our population in this city, especially with minority groups and women, making sure that we're raising that standard salary and really making sure that everyone can lead a productive and healthy life here in St. Louis. So we're excited to do this project, and I'm happy to answer any questions anyone has, but otherwise would ask your favorable consideration.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Alderman from the 14th.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the committee. No questions. I just want to actually commend the aldermen on this legislation. If you go back and you look at the committee hearing, at that very first committee hearing, A lot of us still had questions because a lot of detail wasn't provided on the front end. And as like the Alderwoman from the first always say, sometimes we try to move too fast to get it done. But I do want to appreciate you for and just say thank you for working with your colleagues on the HUD's committee to make sure we have that information and not try to rush it to make sure that we can make a smart decision and make a decision that ultimately I think helped all of us. And I just want to appreciate your leadership on that.
Alderman from the 4th.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. Would the alderman from the 9th yield for questions?
Would the alderman from the 9th yield to questioning from the alderman from the 4th?
Yes.
Alderman, you may proceed.
Thank you. One of these days I'm going to get all these numbers. So I see in this, and then from what you spoke to, that a lot of this $42 million may not even come from the city of St. Louis tax base. Do you have any, even just like rough projections on how this will affect the city of St. Louis?
Yeah, so like I said, when we typically see these construction projects, most construction materials are purchased from big warehouses that don't exist in the city. So those purchases are usually happening outside the city. What we typically see is anywhere from 5 to 20% of construction materials being purchased in the city, but oftentimes it's on that lower end. So no, it's hard to predict because we don't know the availability of certain supplies and where those are going to be. But we do anticipate that the large bulk of this is going to occur outside the city and thus not eat into our sales taxes.
Thank you. And then do you have any projections on the tax revenue that'll be brought in by this project over the years?
I do. Give me a second and I can bring it up.
Sure. And I'm just asking loose numbers. It doesn't have to be hyper-specific.
Yeah, and I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's a significant income. It's much delayed because part of the delay on this has caused the construction to get pushed back. We're excited to finally be breaking ground, but give me 1 second. I'll get that number for you.
Okay.
Okay, so if I'm reading this correctly, the 10-year revenue that we're expecting is about $521,000. The 20-year revenue jumps to $1,036,000. The 25-year jumps to $1.7 million. So we, as I said, see a slight delay there, but the overall increase, this is currently vacant land, so and it's been sitting vacant for a while. So we see an immediate return when the project gets built. We see an even bigger return to both the city and especially the schools as this project ages. And as I said, it also includes that affordable housing at 60% AMI. We also know that this project, is using labor and is using MBE and WBE and all those benefits, the prevailing wage, all that kind of stuff, to make sure that we're really making this a benefit to everybody in the city that we can.
Thank you for that. And then just last question. If this were to fail, if Board Bill number 108 fails, does this project get built?
It's a tight project. We've been through the SLDC process, and what we're looking at is that it's already been difficult to do this. Construction costs have gone up about 50% in the last 2 years. So we're really looking at a really tight margin as it is. I would say that yes, this is a project that needs this. Otherwise, we wouldn't be asking for it.
Thank you for that. I have nothing further.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Alderman from the 9th, you're recognized to close.
Thank you. Again, I just ask your favorable consideration on Board Bill 108 and that we perfect it.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 9th, seconded by the Alderman from the 14th, that we perfect Board Bill number 108. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
That's the extent of board bills for perfection.
Report of engrossment.
We have none.
Third reading and final passage of board bills consent.
We have none.
Third reading and final passage of board bills.
We have none.
We can dispense with line items 17, 18A, 18B. Report of the finally passed and signed by the President.
We have none.
Can dispense with line item 19. First reading resolutions in reference to committees.
Resolution 162, sponsored by Alderman Vollmer. Approval of the 2025 Garden-Side Subdistrict Special Business District Budget.
Alderman from the 5th, you are recognized on the first reading resolution 162.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I request unanimous consent.
Hearing no objection, you may proceed.
All right. What we're doing here is approving the 2025 budget for the Garden-Side Subdistrict Special Business District, which is the GSSBD and the SWGNA Neighborhood Association. It is pretty straightforward. It's a little part of the neighborhood right there between Kings Highway and Shaw's Garden, bounded by Kings Highway and Alfred right there, and down to the Castleman Circle. With that, I request any questions or.
Do you like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we pass Resolution 162.
Is there a second? It's been moved by the Alderman from the 5th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 11th. We adopt resolution number 162. Any further discussion? Alderwoman from the 7th.
Thank you, Madam President. Would the Alderman from the 5th be willing to yield to an inquiry?
Sorry, I could not hear you.
Would the Alderman from the 5th be willing to yield to inquiry?
Alderman from the 5th, would you yield to questioning from the Alderwoman from the 7th?
I have 90 seconds to spare, sure.
Okay. Alderwoman, you may proceed.
Thank you, members of the board. Alderman, we started a special local taxing district, so I wanted to just point this out. As we're having these conversations, I think us having a budget in front of us of what these documents look like could be really helpful. And I wanted to know if you might be willing to send someone from the organization or yourself to maybe come to the special local taxing district and talk to us.
I can put you in contact with Mr. Malone, who is in charge of the Garden-Side District.
Excellent. And then my only other question is the security detail. Do you know if that's primarily for secondary?
It's yes, it's secondary police officers. I don't know the name of the company they use, but some of the companies in the area and other parts of my ward, Campbell Security is one that I've seen a lot. I don't know if they're using.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, it's been moved by the Alderman from the 5th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 11th, that we adopt resolution 62. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Second reading resolutions, committee reports and adoption.
We have none.
We can dispense with line item 21. Alderwoman from the 10th, you're recognized on the motion to adopt the courtesy resolution consent calendar.
Shall we do it now? Bank. I want to end bank. Do I do it after? Okay, thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I move that we adopt the courtesy resolution consent calendar.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 10th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 5th, that we adopt the courtesy resolution consent calendar. Is there any discussion? Alderman from the 4th.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I request that resolution 163 be made in bank.
Second.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 4th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 10th, that we make resolution 163 in bank. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, Alderman from the 14th.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I would like to inquire of the Alderwoman from the 10th.
Alderwoman from the 10th, would you yield to questioning from the Alderman from the 14th?
Yes.
Thank you, Alderwoman. Could you just talk a little bit about Resolution 163 a little bit for the public and why the board just embanked this?
Thank you for the opportunity to do that, which I did invite and honored him as my honored guest. But Resolution 163 is honoring the life, the legacy of Dr. Flint Fowler. Again, I talked about it earlier, the immeasurable and comparable work that he's done in every corner of the city of St. Louis and county, because there are Boys and Girls Clubs in our region, in our county as well. And being able to be around him and see the generations of families and lives, again, that I mentioned, that I mentioned Mayor Jones said in her remarks last night that he has saved. It gave me a lot of hope last night. And even though he's not going far, because like I said and mentioned, he's my constituent. I think I'll chain myself to their door if they were getting ready to leave, because the work that they do goes beyond any walls, any blocks that you could imagine. And I would also like to note that they are very active members. I guess they wouldn't mind, but I'm just proud of this too, in their service, in their spiritual service at Pleasant Green Missionary Baptist Church in the 10th Ward as well, under the direction of Dr. Aaron Letcher, and the work that they want to carry out there, that I'm just excited to be able to be in position to support them with and continue to support them with. So, everybody knows Dr. Fowler. I'm going to tell you, Dr. Fowler last night had on a blue jean outfit with a big medallion, said, "Look at me, I'm here." He had the biggest smile on his face. And again, seeing the children that were honored there last night, the children that were reflected in the videos, the people that were there, the way they enthusiastically gave last night. I just know that we have so much work to do. We know we hit the challenges, especially with our youth here in the city of St. Louis, and we know there's work to do. But when you look to records like Dr. Flint Fowler's, and the legacy that he comes from through his mother and the work, Marie Fowler, the work that she did, that, again, I say it over and over again, there is hope. We just have to all stand in the gap and support each other in it.
Thank you for that. I'm a former youngin of the Boys and Girls Club at Herbert Hoover, so like you say, the work that he's done, and just to be able to provide an outlet for so many young people that as after-school programs throughout the state are being slashed, and young people don't have parks and playgrounds like they used to in their community, and to be able to go to some of these buildings that Dr. Fowler has been part of and really invest in young people and expose them to things that are outside our neighborhood is just a great legacy, like you say, isn't going nowhere. And I just appreciate you for doing this resolution and bringing this to the board and banking it. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, it's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 10th, seconded by the Alderman from the 5th, that we adopt the courtesy resolution consent calendar. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We did not take a final vote on the motion to embank. So let's go back for a second. There was a motion by the Alderwoman from the 10th, seconded by the Alderman from the 4th, that we embank Resolution 163.
Made by him, seconded by me.
Alderman from the 4th made the motion to embank, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 10th. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. With that, we will now take up the motion to adopt the courtesy resolution consent calendar, which was moved by the Alderwoman from the 10th, seconded by the Alderman from the 5th. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Miscellaneous and unfinished business.
We have none.
We can dispense with line item 23, announcement.
Tuesday, October 29th, HUS will have a committee hearing in the Kennedy Room at 6 p.m. Wednesday, October 30th, Budget and Public Employees will have a meeting in the Kennedy Room at 10 a.m., Public Infrastructure at 3:30 p.m. in the Kennedy Room. Thursday, October 31st, Health and Human Development will have a hearing via webinar at 9 a.m. Public Safety will have a committee hearing in the Kennedy Room at 2 p.m. Friday, November 1st, 2024, full board meeting in the chambers at 10 a.m. That's the extent of the announcements.
Any further announcements? Alderman from the 4th.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. Just a reminder to everyone out there that Thursday is Halloween. That means that there will be little kids wandering around at night wearing masks, all jacked up on candy, doing stupid things. So make sure that you're driving slow and sober if you're driving through the neighborhood, and just make it a good night for everyone. Thank you.
Alderwoman from the 11th.
Thank you. That was a good one. Jacked up on candy. So tomorrow, October 26th, is the last day of tire amnesty for 2024. I do want to remind people, while this is tire amnesty, no questions asked, if you are found to be dumping tires at a location that was designated after the appointed time, which is 1 p.m. tomorrow, that's a $1,000 fine. And we are currently working on some legislation to possibly increase the penalties for dumping, period. This past Tire Amnesty Day, there were 2 people who I've got reports that were actually caught dumping tires throughout our community. This is hurting our city and county. It's not just in St. Louis City. It really is all over. And something is going to have to be done for people who are in the tire business because they are not properly disposing of their tires the way that they know that they're supposed to. So Tire Amnesty Day for 2023 and now 2024 have been wildly successful, but after tomorrow at 1 o'clock, it ends. So to your own peril, if you choose to dump tires and you get caught, it's at least a $1,000 fine. So I want to make sure that I put that out there. Now under happier topics. So also on October 31st, Central Baptist will have a fall, F-A-L-L, fall-o-ween, which is something different. So they're going to have it at the warehouse at 2800 Washington Avenue, and they are asking for candy donations. If you are so inclined to assist those children with getting jacked up on candy, please deliver that over to Central Baptist Church. Pastor Riley is the pastor at that church. That program begins on Thursday, October 31st at 5:30 p.m. and ends promptly at 7:30 p.m. Thank you.
Alderwoman from the 7th.
Thank you, Madam President. Members of the board, a couple of announcements. The first one, tomorrow in the Ben Park West neighborhood, we will be cutting the ribbon on the teeny house that's been at work for quite some time. A lot of residents have volunteered and given their time to bring this together. We've relied a huge amount on just volunteer services, and it is together. So we'll be cutting that ribbon. That event is tomorrow from 3 to 7 p.m. There will be kids' activities. There will be face painting. If there's a bounce house, the alderwoman will be getting in it. And we will have food and vendors and be a good time. And then I also wanted to announce that on Sunday, there will be the Woke Voter Brunch at Levels. We obviously have an election coming up, so if you're looking to have yourself a mimosa and learn about the things that will be on your ballot, then you definitely want to come out to Levels on the 27th at 1 p.m.
Alderman from the 14th.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I want to thank the Alderwoman from the 7th for the last one about Levels in the 14th Ward for carrying that one. And I also want to mention to people as Halloween is coming around, it's not just kids that dress up, so we're not going to throw them under the bus. Us adults dress up, and we get jacked up on candy and do crazy things too. So our kids are not the ones to be blamed. But since Halloween is coming up, today from 5 to 7 in the Car Square neighborhood at 1629 Biddle, put on by Car Square Tenant Association, there will be a Halloween party from, again, 5 p.m. to 7. The Tenant Association and Car Square, they never fail to represent and put on for the community. So if people can come, please come on out. And then this Saturday, we have 2 events going on. And the 14th Ward, St. Louis Place Neighborhood Association and New Roots Farming is putting on a Halloween trunk or treat. That will be from 3 to 6 p.m. at 2013 St. Louis Avenue. Again, that will be from 3 to 6. And then also that same day, Communities First will be putting on the 13th annual Spooktacular. So please come on out to Hyde Park. It will be starting at 5. It will be starting at noon, and it'll go to 5 p.m. Another organization that works with committee women of the 14th Ward over in Hyde Park that know how to do it, making sure that we have trunk or treat so kids do not have to go out door to door, but there's a safe environment for them to be able to get candy and get jacked up on and have a great time because they're young. So please come out and support those events. Thank you.
Any further announcements, Alderwoman from the 10th?
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I have two. Just one, reminding everyone, if you hadn't seen it in the news and haven't already participated, early voting has started. It started on the 22nd. There are a lot of resources you can get. I think I mentioned before that constituents have been telling me it's taking a minimum of 15, some 20, 30 minutes to complete their ballots and to get their voice heard at the ballot box. So making sure if you can take an opportunity to take advantage of these 2 weeks, no excuse early voting. Again, there's information on our Board of Elections website, Legal Women Voters. ASHRAE Foundation has a Missouri Voter Toolkit. Talk with your representatives. Get all the information you need so that you are ready, engaged, and informed to cast your vote when you're going in. And then if you can, get it done because we know how challenges it is sometimes on Election Day. And we want to make sure that there's no frustration, that you're able to get your vote in. So again, make sure you engage that way. Also here at the Board of Aldermen on the 14th, you can go back to, again, STL TV and view the town hall, the citywide ballot initiative town hall that was held. It's been recorded there. I've been sharing it with a lot of my constituents because there was a lot of great information shared by our colleagues here on the citywide ballot initiatives. And then this Monday in the 10th Ward, it's our time, again, 10th Ward for our one-on-one. You know, we move around. This Monday, the 28th, on top of it being my little big brother's birthday. Happy birthday, Joseph. I love you. I will also mention that it's at 1010, what we have dubbed the heart of the 10th Ward, 1010 North Kings Highway at King's Custom. Jay has offered to have yet again a trunk or treat for the children. I'm sorry, I got a little caught up about my little brother. To have a trunk or treat for the children from 4 to 6. Again, that's at 1010 North Kings Highway at King Customs. There'll be a $100 gift prize for the best costume. Rise and School Supplies will be there giving out resources. The Brick and so many other 10th Ward businesses. Koogman Motors was participating and giving this year. They're right next door. There are a lot of businesses stretch of Kings Highway that are engaged. If you want to engage still, you can just go holler at Jay at King Customs. We thank him so much for offering to do that. So again, not only will this be a fun time for us to fellowship, it'll also be an opportunity for you to connect with me, your alderperson, our first responders, St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department, and the Fire Department, and others. So thank you so much, and I hope to see you all on Monday. I'll be in costume too, hyped up on candy.
Any further announcements? Seeing none, Alderwoman from the 10th, you are recognized on the motion to excuse.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I move that we excuse the alderman from the 2nd Ward for necessary absence.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 10th, seconded by the Alderman from the 9th, that we excuse the Alderman from the 2nd for necessary absence. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Alderwoman from the 10th, you are recognized on the motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I move that we adjourn until Friday, November the 1st, 2024, in the Board of Aldermen chamber.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 10th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 11th, that we adjourn until Friday, November 1st, 2024 in the Board of Aldermen chambers. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned.